Good evening to all of you. I'm really happy to be here today with a group of distinguished guests from the energy sector, talking about an issue that is of great importance for our future, not only in Greece, and that is pathway to decarbonization. You can watch us at delphi.gr, where you can send your questions and your own comments that are very welcome. Here next to me is Andreas Shiamishis, CEO at Hellenic Petroleum, which is one of the leading energy groups in Southeastern Europe. Welcome, Mr. Shiamishis.
Thank you.
Obviously, the road to decarbonization is long. I would like you to share with us your approach and what are the main challenges that you face.
Thank you very much for the invitation and giving me the opportunity to attend this session. Congratulations to the organizers. I think it's a wonderful initiative to be able to maintain the Delphi Forum even in a digital form. Hopefully next year we'll be able to do it in a physical form. Now, decarbonization is something which is very important if we want to do something about the climate change and about the global warming issue that we are all facing. Decarbonization has often been associated with the Energy Transition Initiative, but that is only part of the issue. Decarbonization is a much wider issue, and it affects a number of areas, including the energy transition. However, one should not ignore the use of energy issue, which is, in my view, the most important one. So when we address the decarbonization issue, I would break down this approach into three different areas. The first one is the energy usage, and that is something which affects the main consumers of energy, namely transport fuel and transport energy, heating, and industrial and commercial use. The second has to do with the supply of energy, be it fossil fuel or natural gas renewables, which are there to support the uses of energy. And the third one, it has to do with the power generation, power being a conversion of energy from one state to another. So it is important to address the issue in a holistic way, and I am pleased to say that over the last few years, the approach has been a lot more holistic from the relevant authorities, from EU and the government in that respect.
So what are your plans for the future of LP, especially in the sector of renewable energy? So because I guess you are moving now from strictly oil to other sources of energy.
We are. It is quite difficult for the CEO of an energy group to stand up and discuss about how we can save energy. So we're effectively trying to reduce the consumption of our own products. However, it's the only way forward. As Hellenic Petroleum, we've charted a strategy over the last 6 months, which involves a very heavy transformational plan in terms of our group. The first one, which is important, it has to do with the use of energy in our own facilities. We are one of the biggest consumers of energy in the country. As an industry, it is pretty much the same across the world. So what we're aiming to do is to become more efficient in our operations and save energy. The cleanest source, the cleanest part of the energy is the energy you don't need to produce. So that is a very important part of our strategy. The second one has to do with the portfolio of the group. You're right in saying that we have diverted a lot of our resources from liquid fuels into other types of energy products. More importantly, we refer to renewable energy sources and natural gas, which is considered as a transition fuel, but that transition is unlikely to be short-lived. So it is an area where we're investing in. So in terms of the renewable energy sources, we recently announced the biggest to date renewable project in Greece, which is effectively kick-starting the whole strategy of Hellenic Petroleum into that sector. There will be a few more to follow, but we will be making the announcements in due course. The final part of the equation is the products that we produce. Now, renewable energy sources is very important. However, we have to be pragmatic and appreciate that both natural gas will be here with us for a number of years, and so will liquid fuels. So it's equally important not only to invest in renewable energy sources, but to invest in improving the environmental footprint of liquid fuels, be it through biofuels or different technology, which will help us to achieve our target. Overall, the target for the group is by 2030. An aggressive target, but we believe that it's doable.
There is a government plan concerning electric cars and the use of them in Greece. It was recently announced by the government, and I think that we are getting involved in that.
We are. The electrification of transportation is something which is irreversible. It's a question of how soon and how far electrification will go into transportation consumption. As a group, we are engaged in this business, this new business sector for us in a number of ways. I would not like to disclose anything at this point in time because we're planning a launch of a new business unit in the next few weeks. But it is something which is of interest to us because we are an energy group. And in that respect, if we don't change and if we don't follow what makes sense from an environmental and from a business point of view, we will not have a future in the next 20 to 30 years.
There's a great debate that, okay, renewable sources is good for the environment, but may result in loss of jobs, especially in Greece, that unfortunately we're not in this. There are many people that are afraid they're going to lose their jobs, and this will result in the heavy unemployment. Do you think that this is really a threat for the economy and the society?
Well, the loss of jobs in a particular sector doesn't necessarily mean the reduction of employment in an economy overall. It is the case that when you move from an industrial process-driven activity or from a mining activity into a renewables energy activity, there will be fewer demands for headcount, for people to work in those activities. However, it is equally important, and I believe that is a challenge for all of us, to make sure that those resources, which have been very productive over the last 30 to 50 years, are redirected into different types of activities so that we do not create an employment crisis as a result of the energy transition process.
Let me ask you something last. Has to do mostly with the relationships that Greece has with Turkey and the turmoil that results with the geostrategic role of Greece and the pipelines and all this. Do you think that Greece in the near future will benefit from resources in the Aegean?
That is a difficult question. And it would take a lot longer than the time we have available to cover all of the facets of this issue. Let me summarize by saying that clearly having resources, natural resources in Greece is something which is positive, and provided that the exploration and exploitation of these resources takes place in an environmentally appropriate way, then the answer is a very positive impact for the economy. Now, on the geopolitical issues, I am afraid that being just a company, it's very difficult for us to comment on how these things develop. But I think if we do things in a prudent way, and I emphasize in an environmentally kosher way, then it will be a positive thing for Greece.
I would like to thank you very much, Mr. Shiamishis.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to have next to me experts on the subject of renewable sources of energy that will share with us their thoughts also on decarbonization. Mr. Konstantinos Xifaras, CEO, Public Gas Corporation, welcome. Kostis Sifnaios, Group Energy Director, Copelouzos Group. Nicola Battilana, CEO, DESFA, the Hellenic Gas Transmission System Operator. He's going to be joining us from abroad. And Aristotelis Chantavas, Head of Europe, Enel Green Power. Welcome all. Mr. Xifaras, let me start with you. What are the benefits of natural gas in Greece's energy transition? And is it something that we should look forward?
First of all, let me thank Delphi Economic Forum for the invitation and for you, Dimitris, for moderate our panel today. Natural gas is the most environmentally friendly of all conventional fuels and reduces gas emissions with a significant way. In addition, it's a fuel with high efficiency, as we all discussed right now, and it's much more competitive as other fossil fuels, while it has a safe and proven distribution and storage technology. Finally, thanks to the technical flexibility of its units, supports and supplements the renewable energy, compensating for fluctuation in its production. This is the big issue with the portion of renewable energy in our system. For all those reasons, natural gas is preferred to cover much of the gap created by the phase-out of lignite right now. According to the IEA, for Greece, coal-to-gas switching reducing emission by 50% in production of electricity and 33% when providing heat. And this means that we are saving CO2 emission by 10% about Greece targets right now. By switching lignite to existing gas-fired plant, there is a potential to have a reduction of 4% in all CO2 emissions of Greece. So even if all lignite production is terminated in a single year, and this is the discussion now and the issue, we believe that domestic gas supplies can cover all this demand, the base load demand. So gas contributes to less carbon in the heating segment, of course, as we have discussed about the residential sector. And yes, they can be the bridge to the decarbonization era that we're entering. And so we believe that for the next decades, gas can be the fuel that can bring together with APE all the future balance of our system.
Thank you. Mr. Sifnaios, I would like you to share your thoughts on this green transition as well as your company's goals and projects in the future.
Of course. Let me just say a very good evening also from my side to our distinguished viewers, and congratulate from my side also the organizers for managing to put together such a complex event under very challenging conditions. I'm sure that all of us would have preferred to be physically in Delphi, but we are glad to be here, safe and healthy, and hopefully next year we'll all be there. Now, before talking about our group initiatives, allow me to stress the great opportunity that we, Greece, as a country, and particularly as sector, the energy sector, are faced with today and in the immediate years to come to transform our operational model and move from a carbon-dependent to a carbon-free energy system. Now we have funds available to do so through the proposed EU recovery plan. This is a very ambitious and generous initiative that can and should help our economies to push aggressively forward the green transition agenda. For Greece, up to 32 billion can become available and transform our economy. Green transition and infrastructures are two of the 4 priority pillars that our government intends to include within the EU recovery plan share. The Greek National Energy and climate plan sets the strategic objectives, the path and the milestones of the transition to a green, carbon-free and efficient energy system. This transition is not and cannot be a one-step process. In transportation, industrial production and power production, we will need to move gradually from coal and oil to low or no emission producing solutions and infrastructure. This will be done first by accelerating the investments in renewable energy, and second by switching from coal and oil to gas. Gas is and will be used as the intermediate fuel to a fully decarbonized economy. Coming to our group. Of course, we are supporting the green transition initiatives, and we have been doing so, and we have been in the forefront of energy transition over the years. With regards to the first axis, renewables, the group has been developing integrated renewable energy solutions in Greece and the Balkans since 1998. In this context, the group has formed strategic alliances with major international players, as is the case with Enel of Italy, China Energy, a leading Chinese power producer, and NEC of Bulgaria. We are one of the leading groups in renewable energy in Greece. We have already designed, developed, constructed, and set in operation over 700 megawatts of wind parks. This includes the largest project in Greece, operated today by Enel, in the area of Xifaras in South Evia Island. The group has also developed, constructed, and set in operation a large number of hydroelectric and photovoltaic plants. Now, looking into the future, our pipeline of new projects in different stages of development, we have 2,000 megawatts of wind parks in various areas of Greece and about 100 megawatts of photovoltaic plants. Amongst them, I believe it's worth mentioning the project of 1,000 megawatts of wind parks on Crete Island, making Crete the largest green island globally. Also, I want to make reference to our offshore wind park project in the Sea of Thrace, offshore Alexandroupolis, of 220 megawatts. Finally, we are progressing a mega project together with the Public Electricity Company of Egypt for the development of 3,300 megawatts of wind parks in Egypt, together with an interconnection infrastructure that will supply significant renewable production in the European electricity grid. With regards to the natural gas, well, firstly, allow me to remind you that our group was the group that introduced gas in Greece in the 80s, and then this started to be consumed by Greek consumers in 1996. I believe that was Russian gas at the time. Of course, we have been also marketing gas in private customers since 2016. Now, looking forward, we will continue to be part and play a leading role in promoting gas as the main fuel that will allow a smooth and seamless transition to a zero-emission system. I would like to highlight the development of our new gas-fired combined cycle power plant in the industrial area of Alexandroupolis. This is a high-efficiency, high-technology power unit with capacity between 650 and 700 megawatts, which I expect to be in operation by the end of 2022. And before concluding, I wanted to make a special reference to what I consider a high-importance strategic project for the sector of gas, energy in general, for Greece and the wider Southeast European region. I'm referring to the LNG terminal offshore Alexandroupolis, a project specifically included in the National Plan for Energy and Climate in the list of European projects of priority for the energy, and since 2013, and in the Bulgarian revised energy and gas strategy for 2020. This is a project that will play a pivotal role in the energy security of Greece and Southeastern Europe, allowing for diversification of routes and sources of energy, enabling market integration, and promoting competition to the benefit of the overall energy cost to the end consumers. It is a new energy gateway to Southeastern Europe, where there have been a lot, and still exist, major constraints in the diversification of suppliers and routes. It's expected to operate by the end of 2022.
Thank you very much. Let me introduce Nicola Battilana. He is the CEO of DESFA, the Hellenic Gas Transmission System Operator. He's abroad. Unfortunately, due to the closed borders, he couldn't be with us today, but we're sure that he's going to be joining us next year in Delphi. Welcome, Mr. Battilana.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation to the forum. I'm sorry not to be there present, physical present. I hope and I'm sure that the technical work and effort that has been done by your staff, my message to be received.
Mr. Battilana, what is the I would like to ask you, what is the role of DESFA and what are the challenges that you face in the near future?
Yeah, thank you. In the midterm and up to 2030 and beyond, natural gas is expected to become the only fossil fuel in many sectors of the economy, remain the energy mix and to ultimately support the energy transition in a cost-efficient and socially viable way. The gas infrastructure in place needs to be further expanded to cover areas that are currently depending on lignite and other fuels to be ready to transfer biomethane and, following the technological and policy intervention, hydrogen. In addition to that, the small-scale infrastructure currently developing will mitigate the greenhouse gas emissions hard-to-abate sectors, such as the shipping industry and isolated, so-called off-the-grid industrial users and distribution network. Our 10 years development plan that will soon be in public consultation on the DESFA website will address new important projects, such as the pipelines for West Macedonia and Western Greece. The approval of the new projects need always to keep into account the impact that they would have on the existing tariff. Is avoided by binding commitments on the transmission capacity and by connection fees. For those projects that are needed and would produce a great benefit for the market and the consumers, but do not have binding commitment so far, or the possibility to successfully succeed in a market test in the short term, there are other ways that have to be defined in the European regulation in order of being approved. I'm referring to cost-benefit analysis and to those projects will increase the flexibility and the reliability of the system, not necessarily bringing new demand, but making the satisfaction of the existing demand safe and most probably cheaper. These projects need to be fully supported by DESFA in regard to what is needed as an additional investment on the gas transmission network. And DESFA has a mandate to mature all those projects in a very efficient way, also considering that the cost of maturing a project is negligible compared to the cost of the execution. In this regard, I have two announcements to make. We will complete this year the connection projects with TAP system, enabling a new source of import of gas in Greece. And we have awarded the contract for the construction of LNG truck loading facility in Renewable, which is foreseen to be completed by the end of next year. We are determined to play our role in the regulated energy infrastructure in Greece, and we are preparing for the future. Our new projects will be designed to be hydrogen ready, and we are developing new pilot projects to determine to what extent the existing infrastructure will be allowed to receive and transport hydrogen. We are not alone in this, counting on the experience of our private shareholders, Enagas, Fluxys, and Snam, being the latter among the leaders in Europe in the hydrogen transformation.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me go to Mr. Chantavas now. Mr. Chantavas, the energy transition will change the energy mix, obviously. And I would like you to tell us about the benefits for the countries and the people and the benefits for Greece.
Yes, first I'd like to thank you very much for the invitation and also congratulate you for the organization of this event. Hopefully next year it's going to be full of people in a different momentum, but even this year you deserve congratulations for this organization. First, it's important to clarify maybe what we talk about energy transition. Mm-hmm. Energy transition, first of all, it's a long-term process. It's a structural transformation of our energy system. And the main target of it is to create and generate affordable energy for all the European citizens. In this energy transition, a pivotal role is played by generation and renewable energy projects. These are the main elements to boost the energy transition and in parallel coordinate the smooth phase out of the current fuels and current generation plants that are going to be phased out gradually. And at the same time, we will use gas, as the gentleman already described, as a transition fuel. This is a process that is, of course, long-term, but at the same time, we should never neglect the real benefits that they have for the citizens. And the countries that are pioneers and are really aggressive in this bring these benefits to the citizens faster, creating the conditions for affordable energy by everybody, and at the same time facing the phenomenon of climate change. We should not neglect as well that generation from renewable energy is actually mainly the most the source of energy that is creating national autonomy and, of course, security, because you rely on your own resources. Wind, sun, and water are existing in every country. And this brings an element of national security that is very important also in these times that we live. In terms of our group, I'm very proud to work for Enel, a group that really was and is a pioneer in this energy transition. Enel was created in 1962 from the nationalization of more than 1,000 electrical companies in Italy. And a milestone year was 1999. In 1999, we decided to divest in transmission networks and at the same time invest in moving abroad in international acquisitions. And in the end, in 2008, we proceeded into establishing Enel Green Power. Today, Enel is the biggest utility in the world. Enel Green Power is the biggest renewable company in the world, with more than 45 gigawatts of generation from renewable energy. And at the same time, our group is leading the energy transition in all continents. And in this spectrum, I think that this could be an example also for our country, where we have recent announcements about a very aggressive decarbonization plan. And it's really important to focus on this in a sustainable way, caring about the local communities. This is something that we do a lot these days in Italy, in Spain, in Chile, and other countries around the world. And it's really important also in our country to put these elements in place in order to move into a smooth decarbonization plan.
Thank you, Mr. Xifaras. I will come back to you. What is the importance of this Med pipeline, and how close are we to its implementation?
East Med is a peace cooperation project in the Southeast Med right now, in an area that normally tensions a lot of conflicts over time. But it's an EU project that right now it's financed by 50% from EU, strengthen Europe's security, but also it's a very important project from the geopolitical view for Greece, Italy, Cyprus, and Israel. For IJ Poseidon DEPA, of course, it's a commercial project. First of all, because if it's not available commercially, this is a project that cannot be done. So the last 9 months, we had plenty of events, like the political support from Greece, Cyprus. They ratified the intergovernmental agreements before 1 month. In a political level in Europe, we have the political support to continue as we hope the last big project of pipeline, with the continuous finance of the project. And of course, right now after the pre-FEED phase of the detailed marine survey, before the detailed marine survey and the FEEDs, now we have a very clear image that this project is economically viable and technically visibly. So we continue right now. We hope in the next few days to announce the awarding of the detailed marine survey study. This is very critical for the project. And of course, the FEED onshore offshore and the Asia onshore offshore also. And this is very critical because with these studies, in the next 2 or 3 years, we can discuss to take the final investment decision.
Israel is still into this project because there are some articles that in Israel they were thinking about it again.
Yes, we know that, but right now we are in cooperation with the Israeli TSO, NGL. They are cooperate with us with the project. We have the same discussion with Tamar Group and Energean. So I think for Israel it's the only way to carry out the quantities they have right now to Europe. Mm-hmm. And for us, of course, to be in the same, with Cyprus also on board with their fields. Of course, the project that can be, let's say, discussed about the FID in the next 3 years, so we don't know exactly what's happening. But also, as Mr. Hatzidakis said, this project can be linked also with other projects like hydrogen in order to be part of as a fuel. So I think we can find many synergies, but the most important is that it's a project that it's right now it's economically viable. Mm-hmm. So we will continue with the studies, and I think in the next years we will see all the other synergies with other stakeholders, because this is the importance to take more people, more companies in the project, in the development of the project.
To get involved. Thank you. Mr. Sifnaios, it is obvious that all these projects, the pipelines that we're talking about, will probably, obviously, upgrade the geostrategic role of Greece, but also will create a turmoil in the area. And because in the past we were very concerned of what Turkey would do in the area and the reaction of Turkey, now it seems that we're moving forward with the support of allies in the European Union. My question to you is that, do you think that all these projects will go ahead?
Well, I think most of the projects will go ahead. Those who will go ahead will need to be financially viable as well. A project cannot stand on its own purely on its geostrategic and geopolitical substance. It needs to have a commercial aspect to it. Now, talking about geopolitics, what Telly said, it's important to be able to produce energy from your own resources, which is an obvious case when you talk about sun, when you talk about wind. Of course, there's an issue, okay, we have the raw materials, but we need somebody to produce the technology for us. Now, when it comes to gas, things are a little bit more complicated. As Greece, we have a unique location in the region. And we need to capture this particular opportunity and the advantage that we have. Now, over the past decades, most of the countries in Southeastern Europe had only one choice of gas supply, and probably only one choice for the route of gas. No access to LNG or other sources or other routes. In some cases, this is still the case. Now, the European Commission have been pushing to change this, both through legislative and regulatory measures, and through financial support as well, with several initiatives and tools. New interregional corridors have been promoted to provide the Union with new sources of gas. One of these cases is South Corridor, which is today becomes reality and will become reality towards the end of the year, as Nicola also explained, which provide access to Caspian gas to a number of European markets, including Greece and Italy, and this is the TANAP-TAP system. Other intra-member state pipelines, interconnectors such as the interconnector Greece-Bulgaria, Greece-Serbia, Bulgaria-Serbia, Bulgaria-Romania, are also enjoying financing through EU tools to integrate for the integration of markets. But most importantly, LNG terminals are the critical infrastructures because are the only infrastructures that can be accessed by multiple suppliers and are not dependent on routes outside the Union. When it comes to a region, Southeastern Europe, new pipelines, and in particular TAP-TANAP and intra-regional interconnections have offered access to new supply sources. However, a new dependency has been created, and this is the transit route dependency. All of the pipelines that bring gas to Greece and Southeastern Europe, whether this is Caspian gas or whether this is Russian gas, are transiting through one sole territory, and we all know what is that. And this is a new dependency that we risk in creating in our quest for diversification of supply. Now, the only projects that can reduce dependency on dominant supply sources and routes are LNG terminals. And our country has this unique advantage being the only country that can have in its territory in Southeastern Europe LNG terminals. And in that respect, Alexandroupolis terminal as well as Revithoussa are the only infrastructure that offer to the region such independent multi-source supply and route options. Mm-hmm. All these new infrastructure work in complementarity, supports the viability of each other. And they can also work in complementarity between themselves. In the case of Alexandroupolis terminal, it works with all the project. It works with TAP, it works with the planned underground storage in Kavala, it works with IGB, and it works also in complementarity with Revithoussa. Okay. In this context, it sets Greece as the entry point to the region, not as a transit country, and enhances its relevant weight and strategic role, the role of Greece, in the region. It is the entry point to the vertical corridor that links Greece, Bulgaria, Romania, and Hungary. And eventually, it enhances energy security for the region, and due to its location, also national security for Greece.
Thank you. Let me go back to Mr. Battilana. Mr. Battilana, there is a great concern in Greece that all these new sources of energy will result in loss of jobs and a rise in unemployment. Do you agree with this approach?
I don't know if I am the right person to answer to this question. I think that every time we face a disruption of one technology, of one business framework, there is a fear to lose jobs and to lose competitiveness at a national level. I think that policies and policymakers needed to address that fear in order to prevent, movements that are against the progress and ultimately against the climate transformation path. In regard to the policies, I think we needed to consider that they needed to be successfully implemented, and we see as a necessity. They cannot be only relying on market measures. They will drive the transition. They will strengthen and further develop the industry infrastructure. And they also need to take into consideration the necessity to transform entire sector of the economy and of work. It's not only the energy transmission that is threatening the jobs, I think. I would be more concerned about the digitalization, for example. But still, digitalization is not seen as an enemy in many areas. So I think the policies needed to take into consideration this fear and to address this need. And the funding needs also to be directed towards those areas, although traditional, in order to keep a certain level of employment and to enable the transition.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Battilana. Mr. Chantavas, very briefly, 1 minute. From your point of view, there is a lot of discussion lately on hydrogen. How do you see the next steps on that field in Greece?
Yes, hydrogen is a talk of the town lately in Brussels. Actually, I'm also having another hat as a president of Solar Power Europe, the European Solar Association. There is a lot of discussion in Brussels lately about how can we recover from the COVID crisis. And there is a lot of ambition to go even more aggressively towards climate neutrality. And hydrogen plays a key role on this. Hydrogen can be a very good supplement to electrification. Electrification will take place in all aspects of our lives, from cars to heating to generating electricity. And in this spectrum, we, as Enel, together with 7 other industry leaders, initiated the Choose Renewable Hydrogen campaign on May 25th in order to demonstrate the benefits of hydrogen and also to demonstrate how important is hydrogen to be linked with renewable energy in order to reach the target of climate neutrality. There are a lot of discussions on this, and I expect that in the next weeks they are going to be intensified so that the policymakers will take the relevant decisions.
Okay, I would like to thank you very much, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you
very much.